Today I'm going to be adjusting the point gap and setting the timing on the Royal Enfield Bullet. This is just following the procedures in the Royal Enfield manual. There are other ways to do it. If you have another way to do it, or if you want to make a comment, go ahead. And I would encourage anybody watching this that has any suggestions to put them in the comments, because I know there's a lot of different tricks and techniques and secrets, and I certainly don't know them all. I'm just going to do what they say to do in the book. First thing you do is unscrew these two bolts here to remove the points cover. Now you can see the ignition points here. So when these two points touch each other is when the spark plug fires. So these two little metal deals here are the points. You can see there's a little bit of a gap in between them. And if I kick the motorcycle over, you can see the gap open and close. Every time it closes is when your spark plug fires. So like right there, the spark plug fires, and then it opens up again. So we want to adjust the gap as it's open. So kick it around to where the points are open, and then get a feeler gauge in there. And the manual says it should be between 0.35 and 0.40 millimeters when open. It will get progressively tighter or more closed as it wears, so I like to adjust it to wider rather than tighter. So I put my 0.40 feeler gauge in here. There's a lot of play. So whoever had this bike before, and this is the first time I've tried to set the points, it ran pretty good, so I didn't mess with it. I figured if it's working, I don't want to break it. But the gap is much too wide here, so we're going to have to narrow it. Also, while you're in here, you want to pry the points apart. Let's see if I can do it without blocking your view with my hand here. You want to pry the points apart like that and look at the surfaces. And if they're really, if they have a whole bunch of holes in them and or they look like they're burnt, you can try sanding them down with a little bit of really fine sandpaper. And if that doesn't work, then you want to replace the points. The other part of the ignition system, the point system, is this thing called a condenser. These usually never go bad, but if you're having misfires, it might be a condenser problem. So now I'm going to adjust the point gap. Now, this is a new piece. So you can see this oblong hole here. So basically what you do is you unscrew this bolt, and then the little plate behind there can rotate back and forth to make the point gap wider or narrower. So that's what we'll be doing. Just undo this bolt and then swivel it. Just a little bit. There we go. So you slide it that way to open and close it. And when you close it, you don't want to really clamp down on your feeler gauge. Also, narrower feeler gauges would be good. This one can't get all the way in the hole. There's also other tricks that people use. Like some people say it's as thick as a matchbook cover, or as a business card. Like if we take this business card, you can see. You put a 0.40 up next to this business card. They're pretty close. So if you wanted to use a business card, you could cut a strip off of it and slide it in there as well. But I'm going to use an actual feeler gauge because I have one. You want it to just, you set it to where you want it, and then all you can see is the back of my hand, huh? Alright, so you move it to where you want it, and then you bolt it down, and then you test it again, and the feeler gauge should just sort of slide in and slide out with a little bit of resistance. You don't want it, you have to force it in because then it's tighter than you want it. And you don't want it to be rattling around in there because then it's too wide. So I'm going to do that with the camera turned off because all you're going to see is the back of my hand anyway. Now, other than being set a little bit too wide, the points were fine on my motorcycle, so I'm not going to replace them. But you can see the different parts that come in the repair kit. This is one point, and then the other point is attached to this backing plate, and then there's a little washer here. So just it's pretty, and then there's a condenser in a bag right there. So that's what you get in the replacement kit. Now on here, it's pretty simple. You just, if I had a digital camera, that is to say, if I were you, I would take a picture of it with a digital camera or a video of it before you take it apart, and then just make sure everything you take off goes back on in exactly the same way. Now regarding lubrication, this point has some grease on it. It looks pretty well greased. You want to put a little tiny bit of grease on the cam, which will be picked up by this follower here, and it'll last a lot longer if you go in here every once in a while and put a little bit of grease on here. Not a lot, because you don't want it to fling out and get into your points, because that can cause problems with the bike running, but you just want a little bit of grease on here. So now we need to set the timing, or figure out when we want the spark plug to fire relative to where the piston is. So there's a pretty cool way to figure out when the piston is at top dead center exactly. We take out our spark plug. And while you're at it, take a look at the spark plug, make sure that it's the right color. There's nothing disturbing on it. And then what we're going to be doing is using a stick in there on top of the piston, which tells you when the piston is at its maximum point. Now some people use a coat hanger or a screwdriver. I went ahead and bought the right part from Royal Enfield. It was $4 on sale at Enfield Gear. I think they're normally $10 or $15. That's American money. This is the part number, and it's a really neat tool. So it threads into the spark plug hole, and then it's got millimeter measurements here. So as the piston's going up and down, you can measure exactly where it is in the stroke. It has this rubber band on it to keep it from falling into your engine. So we just go ahead and thread that into the spark plug hole here. So let's see how that works when the engine is turning. Oh, you might want to protect the bottom of your tank. Or use the decompression lever. If you use the decompression lever, then the high pressure is not going to pop it up. Alright, here's how that works when the engine is turning. When the piston goes up, it pops up. We're going to put the engine in fourth gear and use the rear tire to turn it. That way we can turn the engine forwards and backwards to find the right measurements. Now to get it to move just a little bit, I'm just rocking the wheel one way or rocking it the other way, and just a little rocking motion moves the thing up and down in small increments. That's what I'm doing back here. Up here we'll take a look at what it looks like while I'm doing that. And then I'll tell you what I'm trying to do. So you can see if I rock it back a little bit, it goes down. Rock it up a little bit, it goes up. Now it's starting to go down again, going up, going down, going up, 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 down, up. You get the idea. So what I'm trying to do is find the highest point. That's going down again, going up again, going down again, up again. So this tool has little markings on it. Each one of them represents a millimeter. Now where we want it to be when the point gap closes is at 0.8 millimeters from top dead center, based on where this tool reads. The way that we can determine that is using the built-in amp meter here, watching for it to deflect when the point gap closes. Or if you have a electric testing light, you can hook up the leads in here. But I'm sticking with the manual. The manual says look at the amp meter, so that's what I'm going to do. So I found my top dead center point. On this particular motorcycle, I can just see the entire third notch mark on here. So to get 0.8 millimeters before top dead center, I want to turn the back wheel backwards, and this thing should go down 0.8 millimeters. So not a whole millimeter, but 80% of a millimeter based on these marks. Let's see. That's a little too much. So now I can see the entire second one. So that's 1 millimeter. So I just want to bring it up a little bit, and that's where it should be. That's where my points should be just closing. One cautionary note on this thing: when you're pumping the engine around, if you still have your gas tank on your bike, this thing, if you kick the engine around too fast, this thing will come up and bang into your gas tank. So if I'm kicking the engine around with my foot to bring it to top dead center on the firing stroke, I'll put my hand over this. That way if it pops up, it doesn't ding into the tank. Setting the ignition, I found that mine is firing exactly at top dead center, which means it's a little bit retarded from where it should be. So I need to rotate this plate. Now, that's going to take me a while, and probably all you'd see is the back of my hand. So here, what you do is you undo these two bolts, and then this whole plate rotates to the right and to the left. It's clockwise to retard the firing, and counterclockwise to advance it. So if you want it to fire sooner, you turn it counterclockwise. And if you want it to fire later, you turn it clockwise. So I'm going to mess with that and see how it goes. Now, this is, of course, basic static timing. You want to ride your bike and listen for any funny sounds. See if it's bluing the exhaust pipe. Because if it's too far advanced, you can blow a hole in your piston, and if it's too far retarded, you can burn up your exhaust valves. So listening for pinging is one sure way to find out if you've done it right or wrong, and that should be pretty obvious. If it's making horrible sounds as you're riding along, you better change it, better retard it a little bit. So I hope that helped. Don't just believe me, do your homework. If you know of other methods, go ahead and post it in the comments, and if you're watching this, please read the comments, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people with a lot of different ideas.